Welcome back. You're still watching the morning show here on Arise News, and joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Leila. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, Efeni. Good to see you.
Yes, let's start with these the newspapers as usual. Lead story: oil benchmark lowered over expected crude glut, says Minister of Finance. Says Finance Minister. Defense, education, police lead in sectoral proposal. Crude price launch below $60 over U.S.-China trade deal. Yes, the details of the budget given by the Minister of Finance and Budgeting yesterday. And of course, she had to justify why they had to lower the crude oil price benchmark to $57. And the information which they base that decision on is the information gotten from OPEC, the International Energy Association, as well as the U.S. Energy Information Administration, that indeed there will be glut because there's likely to be as much as 2 million barrels increase production across both OPEC and non-OPEC countries in the year 2020 and from 2019 and more next year. So that is the justification. And of course, given the volatility in the oil market, there's actually the need to err on the side of caution than to be so ambitious only to for the price to crash. But whether the price of crude will even stay on 57 and above is also left to be seen, because other factors may just creep in to affect the price of crude, mentioning the continued U.S.-China trade deal as a case in point.
Yes, Efeni, you are right. I mean, to express concern about volatility in the pump price of oil, an issue that is determined more by geopolitics than basic economic assumptions and prophetic, expectations. And of course, just as the minister was making this statement, oil price fell below $60.
Yep.
In the spot market. The other thing, of course, is that many people have expressed concern about some of those assumptions on which the budget 2020 of Nigeria is based. One of those assumptions is the benchmark price of $57. It's also about expected growth in GDP, which is also another assumption that may not be realistic, given the pressures, both internal and external. And then, of course, revenue, the crisis we have with revenue and revenue expectations. Would we be able to fund the budget, a budget that is even considered too small for us to be able to have any concrete, growth? And then, of course, I think what is important is that the minister has come forward with the details. You will recall that previously we had said that, look, the people who made preliminary or even final comments on what was presented by the president needed to wait to get the details from the Minister of Finance and Budget. And now she has come up with those details, but let's see what happens. But in terms of the details that she has provided, it looks like the Buhari administration intends in the next year to place greater emphasis on security, because the lion's share of the budget goes to defense, police affairs, education, Ministry of Interior, and all those three, shows an emphasis on security, internal security and maybe external security also to some degree. And then, of course, education and health. So these are the main priorities in terms of the details that she has given. Some Nigerians will say, well, maybe a lot more should have been devoted to education, given the crisis that we have in that sector.
Education comes next to defense.
Yes, but if you look at the gap, the budget for defense is almost double that of education. You have over 700, billion devoted to defense, and then you have 400 plus, billion devoted to education. But perhaps it's an improvement on what we had in the past. But it now remains for, again, the National Assembly to act quickly, because as I've said on this subject, the executive arm of government seems to have shown, seriousness to say, look, we want this budget cycle, in place early enough, so that budget performance moving forward, will not be a critical issue. And I think that the National Assembly should do due diligence, play its own part, and meet the executive halfway, and ensure that the budgeting process is much cleaner, smoother this time around.
Not by doing a wishy-washy job, anyway.
No, not by being a rubber stamp, National Assembly. But you're absolutely correct.
Two quick observations. Defense you're talking about.
Yes.
Earlier reports we read, giving the breakdown, 91% of that defense budget going into recurrent, while only 9% will be going into procurement and all that. So whether that means you are putting more emphasis on security, I don't think so. If 91% is for recurrent. Then the other observation on education being on the concurrent list, we must also factor in what the states are spending on education to get the total picture of what the country is putting into education.
Fair enough.
Yes, we move on to other issues that are equally serious. Daily trusts. Federal government bans imports, exports through land border. Experts kick say it will increase inflation. Rice farmers hail policy. This story is repeated in other newspapers in their lead story. The Sun, Daily Sun. Federal government orders total border closure. Joint security operative sees 1.4 billion naira item, says Comptroller General. Then the Guardian newspaper, how economy may suffer under total border closure. While Vanguard reports that what Benin, Niger must do to get borders reopened. Now, this what started as Operation Smart, can't remember the name now, the operation to close the border.
Operation Exercise Swift Response. They call it
Exercise Swift Response. Good.
That's what they call it.
Now,
I'm shocked.
Now, it started in such a way that we thought it was going to last perhaps for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But months rolled by, and now it is total and indefinite. Are we not shooting ourselves in the foot here?
But not total and indefinite in terms that they're going to have all the borders shut forever, but total and indefinite in terms of the fact that now they've gone and literally shut every single border. Of course that's going to cause hyperinflation.
Well, the reasons they are giving, the customs, Controller General of the Customs is saying all goods should go through the seaports. So if you want to bring some goods in from Cotonou,
seaports?
It's legal or illegal.
Well,
legal,
what seaports?
Yes. And report from the ports now is that the ports, the state of Apapa Port and Apapa Road, the roads leading to the port. Even right now at the ports, the customs, they are doing checking manually.
Yeah.
All the scanners are down.
They haven't had working scanners for years.
The costs to the nation, they are not putting that into consideration. They're only talking about...
And the burden at Tinkan Island.
Yes, what they consider as the gains. 146 illegal migrants deported, 317 smugglers arrested, 21,071 bags of imported rice seized.
Well, before now, they had said that the closure of the border was yielding results. One, reducing the smuggling of petroleum products to, encouraging the consumption of locally produced rice, also stopping the massive, importation of spaghetti into Nigeria. But the stakeholders, the people who know, have expressed concern about how this does not amount to a sustainable strategy. I think that what we have here is a situation whereby the government, because of what looks like the initial gains of this, approach that they have adopted, assume that it's a long-term strategy. But it's not a sustainable strategy, and I think that more rigorous thinking is required. If our land borders are the problem, shutting them down completely is not the solution. Is there how technology and science can be used to make those borders more effective? There are certain, steps that can be taken in collaboration with neighboring countries, instead of government just assuming that a knee-jerk response, will solve the problem.
Whatever happened to ECOWAS treaty, trade liberalization, free movement of goods and persons in the West African sub-region, whatever happened is going to happen to the African free trade.
On one hand, you sign agreements.
Which Nigeria just signed.
You sign agreements for integration and cooperation, but at the same time you adopt policies that border on isolationism and protectionism. So there is a contradiction.
Policy somersault, if you ask me.
Mr. Efeni, do we have any international news?
Yes, we have. The state of yesterday, the Queen, of course, declared open parliament, and as is traditional, that was clearly the program of the Prime Minister, which was read by the Queen. And the Daily Telegraph moves on to other issues, saying Johnson edges closer, the Daily Telegraph, closer to Brexit deal. Upbeat assessment from both sides. Queen's speech says October 31 departure a priority. But if you go to the Independent newspaper, you have something contrary. Not necessarily. You have run out of time, EU leaders tell Johnson, because there is no way.
By October 31, maybe we'll have some certainty about the situation in the United
by the
Kingdom.
weekend, you will know the direction.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.